Good evening. This is the day that the Lord hath made, and we ought to rejoice and be glad in it. We are so grateful tonight that you have joined us once again here at the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, located at 2516 Squirrel Hill Road in Herndon, Virginia. We are grateful that you have joined us tonight as a part of our summer series on dealing with life in the midst of a pandemic. Tonight's topic is taking care of yourself in the midst of a pandemic. We are so grateful tonight that we are joined by three members of the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church. We have Brother Joe Pleasance, who is over our fitness ministry here at the church. We have Dr. John Jones, who is one of our members. And then we have Sister Charisse Hunter, who is a registered nurse, who's also a member here at the Mount Pleasant Church. And we're just so grateful for them coming and joining us on tonight. We're going to open up with a moment of prayer. Oh, gracious God, we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to come and just have this dialogue, oh God. We thank you for all that you continue to do, even, Lord, in the midst of a pandemic. You continue to bless us in a mighty way. And for that, God, we just say thank you. Lord, have thine own way is our prayer. In Jesus Christ's name we do pray. And all God's people said amen. Once again, to all those who are joining us, whether you're joining us by Facebook Live or by YouTube Live, we are grateful to have you on tonight. We're asking that you please share this video with your friends list. Let others see what we're doing here. This is the third part in the series so far. We've looked at finances in the midst of a pandemic. Last week, we had a wonderful time talking about leadership in the midst of a pandemic. And tonight, we want to look at taking care of yourself in the midst of a pandemic. Taking care of yourself is so important. 1 Corinthians 6:19 and 20 says, "Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies." Even in the midst of a pandemic, I think it's important for us to understand that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, and it's imperative that we do all that we can to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. And I just want to talk about three areas that I believe are the most important when it comes to taking care of yourself. First of all, we've got to take care of ourselves spiritually. Galatians 5:25, Paul says these words, "If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit." Paul is saying that in order for you to be healthily spiritually, you must live in such a way that is revealed in your daily life. That's why it's so important for us to make sure during this time that we are feeding ourselves spiritually, whether it's reading the Bible, whether it's praying, whether it's making sure that we stay connected to the body of Christ. We have worship on Sunday mornings. We have Sunday school classes by Zoom. It's important for us during this time to make sure that we feed our spirit, take care of our spiritual lives, because it's in that moment, Satan uses moments like this to attack us. And so we've got to make sure that spiritually we are doing everything that we can to be healthy in a spiritual way. But not only do we got to take care of ourselves spiritually, but the second thing is we've got to take care of ourselves physically. I've seen people joke and laugh on social media talking about the COVID-15 or the COVID-20. People are staying home, people are at work, and they're, it seems like they're eating more and they're snacking more. And you got to watch it, you got to watch out, especially the reality is one of the things that this disease, this this pandemic is doing, that COVID-19 is doing, is it's really attacking people who have these underlying conditions. And so you've got to make sure that you really take care of yourself. You take care of yourself physically. I heard the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. What you put in your body is what you will get out of it. Now, one thing that's been a blessing to me is I realized, I was talking to my wife about this, I've probably cooked more during the midst of this pandemic than I ever, because we were stuck in, we really weren't going out a whole lot. Most restaurants until the last, maybe 3 weeks or so really weren't open. So we were finding ourselves really doing a lot of cooking. And it actually is a blessing because you actually are able to watch what you eat. And even though, most gyms were closed and other things, there are still other things that you can do physically, whether it's getting out and just taking a walk. But you've got to make sure, especially during moments like this, that not only do you take care of yourself spiritually, but then you take care of yourself physically. And then this is the final one, and this is important because this is the one where I believe, Satan really attacks us the most, and that's you've got to take care of yourself mentally. The word says, let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. If you don't watch where you are mentally because storms, people are frustrated. People are frustrated about this whole school thing. People are frustrated because of their finances. And if you don't watch out, you will literally begin to lose your mind. You will begin to doubt yourself. You will begin to doubt everything around you. But and I talked about this on Sunday morning. I like when Paul says, he says, think on these things that are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, good, virtuous, and praiseworthy. He says, meditate on these things. One of the things you got to do is you got to make sure that you stay, if you're going to take care of yourself mentally, you got to stay positive. You can't allow the negative to creep in. You can't allow negative people. Sometimes, you got to shut off your telephone. Sometimes you got to shut down social media because, everything seems to be negative. And if you allow that to become a part of you it will literally begin to attack your mind. And once he has your mind, it's all downhill from there. And so that's why the word says you got to renew your mind on a daily basis. You got to renew your mind. As I said, whether that's making up in your mind, I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to do something that I've been saying I was going to do. One of the things, it's amazing, one of the things that I've been doing for years, my wife is always the one who handled plants and stuff like that. But we planted some plants, and I spend a good, I spend each day, I'll spend an hour or two just sitting out on my deck, watering the plants, talking to God. And what I have done, I used to laugh at people who talk to their plants and the people who spend all those time. But I realized it's helpful to me mentally because all that other stuff that, that's pulling people down, I don't have to worry about that right now at that moment. And so remember the text says, our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. And so if you're going to take care of yourself, you got to make sure you take care of your spiritual health, your physical health, and your mental health. We're going to go now to our panelists, and we do want to remind you that if you have any questions, please make sure that you put them in the bar, and we'll make sure that we get to them. I'm going to start with Brother Pleasance. Brother Pleasance, tell me, what do you think is important as far as taking care of yourself in the midst of a pandemic?
So I think
you can take your mask down.
First of all, I want to thank you, Pastor, for inviting me here and to say hi to everybody. So I think the most important thing in the midst of this pandemic is to stay positive. Myself, I think you have to get a routine that you're going to stick with. As far as being physically fit, everybody can make excuses. It's easy to make excuses not to exercise. And with this pandemic, we are, like the pastor said, we are sitting at home more often. We're eating a lot more than we usually do. I mean, I sit at home myself, and sometimes, you just think about, hey, what can I snack on? I mean, it's so easy to go into the kitchen or somewhere and find a snack. But my main thing is this, I just speak for myself. Exercising is easy for me. I don't mind exercising. I would get up in the morning when the gym was open, and I'm at the gym at 5:30 in the morning, and I get an hour and a half in a workout before I go to work. And believe it or not, getting that morning burn is really beneficial. I mean, you're ready to hit all the problems and all the drama that goes on at work once you get that exercise in. And I'm gonna be honest with you. To get into that routine, it's hard, but you have to make yourself do it. I find myself, if I don't do it, I miss it. And I find myself, at work, the little things tend to become big things when I don't get that morning exercise. So I think it's really important to find a routine that you like doing, and that's the main thing. All exercises are not for everybody, but you have to find something that you enjoy doing. Once you find that whatever it is, walking, running, cycling, whatever it is, once you find that, you will enjoy it a lot better. I'll give an example. Adrian and I, just Saturday, we was both off. We woke up together, and we said, we got this saying, take it to the bridge. So what that means is we're going to do a bike ride, and it's going to involve a bridge. So we got up, and we took our bikes down to Old Town Alexandria, and we rode the Wilson Bridge over to National Harbor. It's a good ride. We had fun doing it. And I must admit, when first time we did it, Adrian and I almost ended up in divorce court. But now she does really well with it. But you have to find something that you enjoy doing it, and you have to it's always better to do it with somebody else involved.
Okay, Dr. Jones, tell me, what do you think is the most important thing to take care of yourself in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, to dovetail into what Joe says, to me it's body, mind, and spirit. I think you should start out with a spiritual component, nourish that, then nourish the mental component, and add a physical component as well. With me, a friend of mine told me 2 or 3 weeks ago that they heard that people come out of the pandemic either a monk, a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk. I'm not trying to deal with the last one or the next to the last one, okay? So consequently, what I've been doing is jumping rope. Easy, good cardio. It dials your mind into your body because, when you jump rope, you have to work your legs, work your arms, coordination, your breathing, and all of that. And I miss going to the gym because, again, like Joe says, I was in the gym at 6 in the morning before I went to work. And it's more of a mental exercise than anything else. It really is. It just so happens that when you do that, you get some physical benefits as well. But again, not to steal Joe's thunder, you go to work and you've already faced the challenge first thing in the morning, and you've overcome that challenge. So now the other challenges you come upon, you're already used to winning. And so you go into these situations knowing that, okay, I'm used to overcoming. So the problems that come along, you use the same mentality and mindset to overcome those problems, okay? And nourishing the mind, I think you should do some reading, do some relaxing, and just expand your mind at this particular time because you now have time. We have had to do a reboot. Everyone has been knocked down to level. God has said, okay, you are going to shut it down and redo everything. So this is the time for you to do that. And again, spiritually, you have to nourish the spirit by praying. So you just start the day out by praying and nourish the body with some exercise and some food, good food, and keep it moving. So that's what sustained me. I'm not trying to get into the big four, okay? I'm trying
Sister Charisse, what do you think is the most important thing during this pandemic to take care of yourself?
So for me, I echo what they've said around taking care of your body and physically. But for me, what's been really important is just being honest and open about how I'm feeling day to day, and really taking time to reflect on the little, no matter how big or how small, but like the blessings that have occurred. One of the things I had decided really at the beginning of the year, before I knew any of this was going to happen, was that each week I was going to keep what I called my blessings jar, where I write on a little index card something good that happened that week. And so when like the shutdown started, I actually started keeping track of like which week of the quarantine it was, like quarantine week 1 and 2. And even if it was something simple like I had a really great time on my run this week, or we had nice weather all week, I would write it on that card and put it in the jar. And it just really helped me not get so caught up in like the minutia of what's happening, the stuff that you see on the news and on social media, work being really busy, et cetera. But that, there are still good things that are happening. It's created an opportunity to spend time with friends in a different way, which at first was challenging for someone who works remotely and spends all day in meetings in front of the computer. To then have to interact with family and friends in front of the computer was really challenging for me. And so, just being open about what I'm feeling each day and talking to my spouse about it or my friends about it, talking to God about it most importantly, I think has really helped me keep a good head throughout a really uncertain time. For me, I actually started training for a marathon this year, which like all of my milestone races had been canceled and I had to run virtually. But I was feeling like I had more time than I ever had before to really work out and do things for myself. And right after I passed like kind of the half marathon mark, I sustained a pretty bad injury to my legs, and like was out of commission for several weeks. And it was the same week that all of the stuff happened with George Floyd, and there was just so much happening in the world and so many like frustrating things. And I had realized that running like had become my outlet, and now I couldn't do that. And there was a day that I literally just like cried myself to sleep. I was in so much pain. I was so upset about everything that was happening, and I just had to talk to God and be open about what I was feeling. I was like, today is not a good day. And I have been in a pretty good mood and felt generally upbeat despite everything that was happening. And like, this was not a good day or a good week even. And I talked a lot to my husband about it, and he, encouraged me to like, it's okay to not feel upbeat every day. And so I think the one thing that I would encourage people to think about is like, just be open about how you're feeling, and allow yourself to feel those things so that you don't just let them sink in. And like, that's how people end up with depression and anxiety and all of those other things. And so it really helps to just talk to God, talk to friends, talk to family about, what you're feeling day to day.
Okay, thank you all. Brother Joe, you talked about a routine. How is it? Because somebody else asked me that. how do you get a routine when, you know, a good majority of your day is spent, you know, say you're teleworking, you know, a lot of people are teleworking, and they're having a hard time trying to come up with a routine. How can you build a routine, you know, in such a difficult time like this? How do you build that routine?
So that's a good question. Like you say, people teleworking. I did it for about 3 weeks. And man, I work harder at home than I did at work. I don't know why, but I did. Yeah, you work harder at home than you do at work because the time you get up from the computer, you hear that little ding, 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 and somebody's trying to get a hold of you. So, you know, to get a routine, I'll tell you one thing, you know, you could do is don't sit in front of the computer. I mean, you know, I'm talking about while you're working. You can stand up in front of the computer and do that. But as far as the routine, you're going to have to, I think Dr. Jones said it, you're going to have, it's a commitment. A routine, you're going to have to, you know, if you go to work at 7 o'clock, you're going to have to get up an extra hour early. It's a routine. That's what you call a routine. And I think routines are hard to develop. It takes about what they say, 8 days to develop a routine. So you're going to have to commit yourself to that routine. And another thing that makes a routine easy is to find something that you like doing. Something you look forward to doing. It don't have to be much. I mean, you know, 15 to 30-minute walk, it's all you need. I mean, that's better than nothing. Because, you know, you're sitting at that computer, you're going to eat more. So it's not easy, but you just have to, it's a commitment.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Charisse, you talked about an out. You used the word outlet. I like that. Can you talk a little bit about, because what happens during times like this is you can have a positive outlet or you can have a negative outlet. And negative outlets during this time, you know, one of the big issues, and Doc talked about a little bit, he talked about which one are you going to be, and the last one was a drunk. One of the things, you know, they kept open the liquor stores, and people have talked about drinking, and so there is a grave danger in having a negative outlet. You said running was your outlet. Can you just talk about the importance of having positive outlets?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you have a space to clear your mind of all of the uncertain, you know, and sometimes scary things that are happening, it helps you to really adapt and adjust to the state. And I think to your point, that, you know, there's been a lot of talks about people turning into junks during the pandemic, like that becomes their escape from the reality. For me, you know, I spent a lot of time working on puzzles too. It was like a good way to just clear my brain of everything and like focus on this very specific thing. But for me, running was a great way to just like release the day. You know, I was so like Joe said, I've worked more over the last 3 months than I had in the past several years. And running for me was a great way to say, like, I'm letting go of the day, I'm letting go of everything that I'm hearing on the news or social media, et cetera, and it's just gonna be me and the trail and God and the people around me that I need to stay distant from as I run. And it was like a great way to, you know, just keep my mind in a peaceful place.
Okay. Doc, you talked about jump roping. Was that something that you had previously done? Was that something that you had done before?
Not particularly. I just knew that we couldn't get back to the gyms, and I wanted to do something that would work with coordination, some aerobics, and just some anaerobic as well, because you have to use the major muscles, the legs, the calves, the glutes, and et cetera, to do that. And it kind of clears your mind and makes you focus as well, because it's tough when you hit your big toe with that rope going around, okay? And you're trying to focus to make sure you don't do that, but at the same time, you're getting a good burn. you getting a sense of accomplishment because, you know, I hadn't jumped rope really since I was a kid. You know, you jump a little bit when you're in the gym sometimes, but not for 20, 30 minutes. You know, not 20, 30 minutes at a time. Now, don't get me wrong. But in 2 or 3 minute segments, 30-second segments, and et cetera. So it just works out real well, and it clears your mind as well because you can't really think of very much while you're doing that.
You talked about something that I think is important. You said it brings you a sense of accomplishment. And I think that is important physically, spiritually, and mentally. Whatever you're doing during this time is to kind of have. Otherwise, the days kind of just, run up on one another, and you look and
it's over with,
it becomes, monotonous and everything. So I think that sense of accomplishment is important.
No, and I agree because you need the confidence that accomplishment allows you to have. Because when you get into an uncomfortable situation, you need to have some confidence to fall back on. And the best way to have some confidence is to build confidence in yourself. And consequently, it would get you through the tough times. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked the question about, besides fruit, what are some healthy snacks that you can eat? Anybody want to take that?
So I'm a big snacker, and so that was one of the things I had to figure out pretty early on is how to snack on healthy things, and so I found myself trying things like plantain chips that don't have a lot of additional ingredients. It's just plantains and olive oil and salt, and that was a better substitute than potato chips and things like that. I also found myself making fruit and vegetable smoothies, as a quick way to, especially since I often have meetings over my lunch break, which isn't fantastic, but it's a way to get, the nutrients I need in the middle of the day. So that was a nice, midday snack or a small meal that I started doing more, I think, during the pandemic. I guess the others are probably mostly fruits because I'm a big fruit eater for my sweet cravings. But if I think of other ones, I'll chime in.
But Joe?
So you might not want to ask me that question because I'm a bad snacker. My wife and my mother-in-law live with me. We live in the house. But I got another little lady that's in the cookie jar. and I pass that cookie jar on the way to bed every night, and she's called me every night. Don't you want 2 cookies? So that's one of my struggles. But my wife, she does push the fruits on me, and so I think the fruit, it gives you the energy, and it does satisfy your sweet tooth. So I think fruits is the best thing.
I got you. How important is your family when it comes to your overall health? Spiritually, physically, mentally. When everybody is kind of, at one point we were almost all cramped up together. Everybody was there. I think now more people have started going back to work for a good amount of time. And now you have children who may or may not be able to go back to school, who are going through this mental issue, these mental issues, really. I have a daughter who, her freshman year of college was cut short. Now, her school has said that sophomores for the first semester won't be able to go back. They have to stay home the first semester, and then they'll go back the second semester. And so I know that she's struggling mentally with that. What can we do to help people who are struggling mentally during this time? Doc, what do you think? What can be done to help people who are struggling mentally?
Just communicate
Communication.
and talk. You know, that's the big thing. I know my daughters are out of the house, but they're in school. One is in New Orleans and one is in Nashville. And we talk more now since they had to go on the virtual learning than we did before. You know, they'll call and just talk about what's going on. Daddy, this is crazy. I don't see my friends. I don't have the contact anymore. And these are the times when you have to kind of soothe them a bit and let them know that this is part of a phase, and you have to deal with it as best you possibly can. Everything positive, though. You know, you don't say the negative things about it. You just try to be as positive as you possibly can, because, again, you want to interject the positivity and the confidence in the kids, because the reason they're asking is because they're searching, and you want to give them something to find when they search.
Yeah. And there's enough negative already out there.
Already out there.
There's,
you know what I mean?
You know, whether it's the news media, whether it's social, it's, you know, everything is, it just seems to be continue one thing. As you said, you know, we had COVID, then we had George Floyd, and then it just seems like, you know, then we got the president we have, and, you know, it just seems like one thing after another, you know, we have all of these issues, and I think that, because I think, like, as I said before, you know, this whole thing about the mental issue, I think is so important. And positivity, and it's amazing that being positive also helps your physical health.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You know, being positive also helps your physical health. What have you done to kind of stay positive?
Yeah, I think that goes along the lines of the reflecting each week on something good that happened. You know, throughout the pandemic, particularly as someone who really embraced running, I really relied on nice days. And so if we had a week of rain, it was just really hard to find things to get excited about. And it was so easy to just get bummed out because the only thing you can do is step outside the house. You can't go anywhere, so you could only go for walks and things like that. So then I would really have to think about all right, what was the really good thing that happened to me this week? Even though it rained every day, and it might have been I finished a 1,000-piece puzzle, or I saw a really funny movie, or I did a Zoom, workout with my friends because I couldn't work out outside. And so I think the key to staying positive is really reflecting on the good things that are happening, even if they're seemingly small. And I think that was one thing that really resonated with me, I think, throughout the last several months, particularly to pass this point, when things just started piling on. It was every day was something new, and it was just so easy to get burdened by that frustration. And so to find things that, you could reflect on, I cooked a new recipe, and it turned out really well, and, just embracing those little things.
We have a question. How do you avoid the distractions keeping you from doing what is right? Anybody want to take that? How do you avoid the distractions keeping you from doing what is right?
I would say focus on doing something right. If you focus on it and implement it, then you don't have time or the energy to do the things that aren't right, because you're too busy doing what is right. Yeah. And then that becomes a positively tumbling situation.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, that kind of goes into my sermon on Sunday morning when I talked about, focusing on God. When you focus on those things that are good, I think, even the text that I read earlier, when Paul says, truth, justice, right, good, things are pleasant. He said, meditate on those things. You've got to have your mind. You've got to have that, especially during times like this. As I said, Satan will take any window he can. I mean, if you let the window up just a little bit, he'll come right on in. And so you've got to have that mental, spiritual, physical focus to not allow him in and keep your mind on those things that are good, that are pleasant to the Lord, and meditate on those and focus on those. And when you focus on those things, when you focus on the things that are going to be a blessing to you, physically, spiritually, mentally, that allows, the worst thing we can have right now is idle time. Idle time is, is what's the old saying? Idle time is the devil's playground. And when you don't have anything to do and you're idle and you're just sitting around, that's when there's an opportunity for the devil to come in.
And I like to say that, we have control. I mean, if you watch the news every day, all day, it's nothing but negativity. Turn it off. Yeah. At our house now, my mother-in-law, Sister Bush, Deacon Bush, she watches Little House on the Prairie all day long. I mean, and I sit down and watch an episode with her, and if you ever watch Little House on the Prairie, it's just nice little stories, and they always have a good ending, a meaning. But we turn the news off because it's the same old news, and so we have the control to turn it off.
Okay. We have another question. I guess this would go for either you, Brother Pleasance, or you. You talked about running is your out. If you have never worked out before, what is a good thing to start with? I know, Dr. Jones, even though you work out, you talked about jumping rope. What are some other, what for that beginner?
Yeah. So for me, I think a really good way to get started when you haven't had a consistent routine is something as simple as a resistance band. It's funny because when the pandemic first started, we were trying to order all of this like indoor exercise stuff. Everything is sold out. I can't even get a dumbbell. So I'm like, there's literally nothing to get to work out. And so I just ordered a pack of resistance bands. And there's just so many things you could do with it. You could do arm exercises, you could do leg exercises, and you can sit while you do it. So when I had my injury and I split my shins, which I did working out, which was even crazier, I couldn't run anymore. And so I had to do something because I was just sitting on the couch every day. And so it was nice to be able to like pull out the resistance bands, and even while I'm sitting, if you don't feel like you have a lot of endurance yet, you could just sit and like pull your resistance bands, do a lot of different arm exercises or core exercises, and it's a great way to get started as you're starting to build up your fitness regimen.
So I like to say, start slow. And first and foremost, doc, you should go to the doctor to make sure you're clear to do exercise.
Yeah.
First and foremost, everybody can't do exercise, but that's the first thing you want to do. But you want to start slow. There's no need to go out there and try to impress anybody or try to do more or try to do the things you could do 10, 15 years ago. You just can't do it. Not off the start. A funny story of mine is I used to travel with my job, and one of my co-workers, we traveled together to Texas, and so before I travel, I always try to find a gym in the city that I'm going to go to so I can get my workout on. So this guy, he said, "Hey Joe, I'm going to work out with you." So I said, "Okay." So the next morning we got up and worked out, and I went through my routine, and for whatever weight I put on the bar, I can do that. I'm gonna do it too. So he did it. Went on through the workout with me. Said, okay. Next morning, I'm waiting downstairs for him because we ready to go to the customer site to work on a tool. Where is this guy? He could not get out the bed. He could not. He said, "Man, I can't raise my arm to put my shirt on." And and that whole week. I mean, not just that next day, but that whole week he was sore. And so you just can't push yourself. You got to start slow. You got to get a doctor's recommendation that you're clear to exercise. And I tell you, don't be ashamed to take a pain reliever. There's nothing wrong with taking a pain reliever. I mean, I do it if I go too hard, I'll take a pain reliever. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be ashamed to take a pain reliever. Also, like I say, I'm head of the fitness ministry. We have a class every Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock on Zoom. it's a beginner's class. I call it a beginner's class because you have the option to sit down, drink your water, and then come back whenever you want to. We have a lot of fun. It's a good group of people. We'll be glad to have you there. You can look us up on the rim.
Okay. Yeah, and you talked about it was amazing. You know, I have a son who's a senior, who'll be a senior in high school, who plays football, and that was one of the first things that we did was barbells, and we tried to, you know, go get. And I think we went to every Dick's in the area, and we found one, and the guy was like, "Listen, somebody else bought this and brought it back, so." And you can't find a bicycle. I've been looking for a bike. I've been looking for a bike because I've been wanting to start riding, but it's hard to.
It's a 2-month wait.
Yeah, it's hard to find them. We got another question. We have another question from somebody on Facebook. How do you really separate work time from home time? So I guess, you know, when you're home and if you're teleworking, you know, and I guess that probably goes back to the routine and the schedule. You got to have a schedule. You got to, you know, and I've talked to people, you got to, I mean, literally set your eating time, set your workout time, and when it's time for you to, you know, work out, it's time for you to work out. When it's time for you to take a break, because if you sit there all day long and you realize that, you know, I've been at this computer now for 8 hours, I haven't eaten anything, I haven't gotten up and moved around, that can be unhealthy. Yeah, that can be unhealthy. So I think it's important what you talked about when it comes back to a routine. Somebody else asked about you know, meditating. I think that meditation, prayer, I think that's so important when it comes to taking care. You don't want to come out of a pandemic and be worse off spiritually than when you got in.
Correct.
The Bible talks about praying without ceasing. You don't want to come out and look in 6 months and your prayer life is worse off than when you started. Or you know, we already know that we haven't been able to come to worship on Sundays. But that's why I say it's so important to stay connected. You know, that's why we've made sure that we've done all we can to have worship on Sunday mornings online, Wednesday nights online, even what Joe talked about on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have our exercise classes. We have other Bible study classes throughout the week on Zoom. We have Sunday school on Sunday morning. You know, our motto here is we build here. And we believe, you know, it's a part of our mission as a church to build up people spiritually, physically, and mentally. And you can't, and this is what is really, and I know the last week we're going to talk about, you know, what does the church look like, you know, post-pandemic, but I think it's so important to make sure that the church does all these things to meet those needs, because people are searching. People are looking for answers, and people want to help. And if, you know, if you're a church and all you're doing is providing worship on Sunday mornings, I believe you're failing the people who you serve. It's got to be more than that. We've got to begin to, as I said, build people up physically, spiritually, and mentally, because it's all a part of who we are as the people of God. Doc, tell me, what's been the most difficult thing for you? Just from a personal standpoint, what's been the most difficult thing for you in all of this?
Well, in my particular profession, we were charged to shut it down, period, from the 15th of March until 1st of June. And so a lot of downtime, because I physically really could not go to work. I could do emergencies, but I couldn't really do a lot of the treatments that I normally would be doing. So consequently, that's when, Rev, as you said, the devil can show up. Because I literally had no need to go out of the house except to go get something to eat. So potentially that was the roughest time. But because I tried to make a point to deal with what I call the triumvirate, body, mind, and spirit, that kind of kept me settled so that I didn't have to succumb to the negativities.
So Charisse, what has been your most difficult time during all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think broadly it's been like dealing with the true impact of COVID. You know, as someone in healthcare, like my office is based in New York. So I was a remote employee even prior to the pandemic, but was traveling to New York during the week, every other week, like to have my meetings in the office, et cetera. But we serve a population in the Brooklyn area that got hit really hard by the pandemic. The hospitals were mayhem. And so I think, you know, trying to stay positive and not let like the anxiety of like the real impact of COVID hit as hard. You know, I had family who was impacted by COVID. And so, you know, that was challenging. I think like more specifically thinking like honing in on like certain times, it was really the like racial injustice and the stuff that happened surrounding George Floyd was a particularly hard moment for me, combined with the fact that I didn't have like my outlet of running to like let off the steam. And so it was very easy for like all of the frustrations around that to sink in. And so like that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier is like I had to allow myself to feel those things. Like I'm a generally upbeat person. I don't tend to like wear the weight of, you know, the world on my shoulders, but it was definitely a time where I was like, this like is not okay, and this is really hard. And I actually read this Bible plan. Actually, I might be able to pull it up because there was a verse that really resonated with me. I read this Bible plan called "Peace for the Justice-Seeking Soul." And there was a verse in the Message translation that I really liked. It was Psalms 34, verses 4 and 5. But the Message translation of it was, God met me more than halfway. He freed me from my anxious fears. Look at him. Give him your warmest smile. Never hide your feelings from him. And what really stood out to me about that is, you know, like the ability to just talk to God whenever you want. You know, you can talk to your friends, you can talk to your family, but sometimes you feel pressure to feel and react a certain way. And so you don't want to really just like let it out when you're feeling frustrated. And so for me, the hardest part was the fact that like we're all stuck in the house. We had to find alternate ways to do all of the things we love to do. And you watch the news and you have a president who doesn't seem to be making things better. And like all of that starts to sink in and you just have to like give it to God.
Joe, what's been your most difficult time during this pandemic?
So during the pandemic, you know, like I said, I had my routine of going to the gym, and the gym is closed. I can't get there. I can't go. So I play racquetball, and so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I was on the racquetball court for an hour playing racquetball. It was a group of us, and honestly, that's been the most difficult thing, to find something else to replace that, because you know. You in there and you hitting that little ball, and it just you can hit it as hard as you want to, and and I don't have that release anymore. But finding a new routine, it's been difficult. You know, I have found one. You know, but I really miss going to the gym. And like I said, I try not to look at the news and listen to the negativity out there no more than I have to. But yeah, that's been the most difficult part.
Okay. All right. This is going to be our final question. Tell me, Doc, what are you going to be most proud of when you come out of this, whenever this is over with, and you can look at holistically at yourself, spiritually, physically, mentally? What are you going to be most proud of to say, I did this?
Well, a multiplicity of things. First and foremost, I'm proud that I didn't fall for the okie doke. I'll be proud that I've used the time wisely to plan and just prepare for when we come out of this pandemic. And just the mind expansion, the focus that I've gained, and the confidence that I've gained that I got a chance to delve into during this particular time. And so it has and will make me stronger, because hopefully I will have used this time wisely to be able to look back 6 months from now and say, hey, this was not a waste of time. I learned, I focused, and I evolved during this particular time.
And you didn't become a chunk and a drunk.
Didn't become a chunk in the trunk.
Brother Joe, what do you think? What is going to be your greatest accomplishment when this is all over with?
So every morning, I pray to God. Part of my prayer is I thank Him, first of all, for waking me up in the morning, and I thank Him for good health. And I think what I'm proud of, not that I'm doing it, but I'm proud of the decisions that I have to make to keep my family safe, because they mean the world to me to keep them safe. So I'll be proud that hopefully I will continue to make the right decisions. We can communicate and make the right decisions together. And so that's one of the main things I'll be proud of, that we come out of this thing healthy and safe.
Ms. Charisse?
I think for me, I'll be most proud that I didn't let, for all of those things, like the COVID and the pandemic, get the best of me. I found some really productive things to do with my time. I'm proud of the fact that I'm probably in the best shape I've been in years, and was able to use my time wisely to get in a good regimen. I'm also really proud of the work we've done, even though I've worked insane hours over the last few months. But that went towards, building a model that could care for vulnerable populations who have limited access to care and who are experiencing the social and economic disparities that we see in our healthcare system. And I was really able to work towards solving for that and to provide more equitable care for patients who need it. And so I think, the work that I was able to put in, even though it was a lot at times, and then the things I've been able to do for myself are things that I'll feel really proud of when all is said and done.
All right, thank you. Doc, we got one more question for you. Somebody asked, what are some of the safeguards that we as patients should look for before we keep an appointment for renal dental checkup, or really any doctor's appointment?
Well, that's a very good question. Especially in dentistry, the ADA, CDC, and the Virginia Dental Association have put together a very, very precise set of standards and rules that we are adhering to, the profession we are adhering to. It's becoming a bit less personal now, because you just don't want to expose people to the possibilities of the infection. Mm-hmm. So most offices have changed have re-engineered their look. In my office in particular, we've had to put a lot of plexiglass in to separate the chairs so that when the patients come in, they don't come as close to one another as they have before. In most reception areas, there are no more magazines. There are no more people really in the reception areas. They're being asked to wait in the cars and get a phone call and then come up and come straight back to the treatment areas. There are the temperature checks, as you're having here, the hand sanitizing, the questionnaires, these sorts of things. In regards to dentistry, because we literally are up close and personal at the mouth, there are a lot of PPE that we have to wear for our protection and our patients' protection, because the aerosol that's emitted when you do a procedure, you have tooth structure, saliva going up in the air. So you don't want to inhale those types of things. Mm-hmm. So, there are a lot of things going on.
I got
filters.
you. And I think it's what I kind of look at is just, and also it's whether you go in a restaurant, whether you go anywhere, you look to see what people have done. If they haven't done any of that stuff that you talked about, if you go in an office and people are sitting up on one another and people all that, I probably wouldn't go in there.
It's a wrap. You're out.
Yeah, because that says that they have not done. It's the same thing, as I said, with churches.
Yeah.
When, if you come to Mount Pleasant right now for whatever, you have to have your temperature checked. We're wearing masks. And so I think that's for anything. So I thank you for that. I thank each of you for coming and sharing with us on tonight, how we can take care of ourselves. I think we've, on YouTube and Facebook, people are appreciative of you all. So we got some wonderful information. As I've been saying, I like that last question, what have you learned? I think the most important thing that I've learned is, and we say trust in God a lot. It's kind of cliche to say we trust in God. But one thing I've learned is during a pandemic that you've got to completely trust in God. Yep. Whether you're talking about your finances, your job, your spiritual, physical, mental well-being, you've got to put it, because there are times, I've been saying, there have been times when I was doing Bible study and my computer died. Here I am live with 100-some people following along, and my computer dies. And literally, let me tell you, those were some challenging times. But I truly trusted and believed in God, and I didn't allow, I've talked to people I've talked to other pastors who have struggled with this. Some churches did not have the capacity to go online, and they have really, really struggled during this time. So I've just learned, I think I've learned more than anything, just that we've got to completely trust and believe in God. And no matter what it is that you're dealing with, no matter what it is that you're going through, as I said, spiritually, physically, mentally, keep trusting and believing in God. Keep putting it in God's hands, and God will bring you through. Once again, we thank God for each of you who have come to share with us tonight. Thank our guests, our panelists who have come to be here with us on tonight. I just want to continue to remind you, Mount Pleasant, that we are preparing. Some months ago, I told you I put together a transition team, a task force that is working hard, trying to plan everything. We don't have a date for you. We don't know when that will be that we come back into our sanctuary. But we want to make sure that when we do eventually come back, that we have done everything, we have taken all the precautions to make you feel safe, that you can come into the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church at 2516 Squirrel Hill Road and feel comfortable and safe sitting in your worship service. And so we want you to continue to be in prayer, not only for the leadership, but be in prayer for the team, the task force team. We're going to be doing some fasting and praying in the next couple of weeks. We'll be letting you know about that. Please put on your calendar Tuesday, July the 28th at 7 p.m. That's Tuesday, July 28th at 7 p.m. We will have a Zoom town hall session where you can ask all the questions you want to ask. Actually, later on in this week, we'll be producing and putting out kind of a guidelines on when we eventually do come back. We'll be putting out a guideline for that. And so you'll have that letter We're doing some videos to kind of let you see what the process is going to look like. And we'll do all of that before our meeting on the 28th. So any questions that you have, you can ask them then. Hopefully by then, maybe we'll have for you a date when we will come back into the sanctuary. I'll be honest with you, it's not going to be like it was before. Things are going to be different. We just need to go ahead and get ready. Some people are saying we won't be back to normal until summer of 2021. I don't know when it will be, but I do know that things will not be the same here in the church. But I just believe, as I said, if we just trust and believe in God, that God will lead us and guide us in the right direction. God bless you. Good night. See you on next week until we meet again.